My parents pulled me out of gymnastics and are allowing my sister to keep attending. But my parents drained my will to live. My parents and I had been talking about plans for my Sweet 16 party for the last few weeks before this happened. But at first, it was not about dance. My parents are not vaccinated and do not believe in getting flu shots either, and they did not believe COVID was real when it happened. My parents are highly religious, and even though our church switched to online services early last year, they returned to outdoor in-person services within a few weeks. People did not seem to maintain social distancing afterward, even though the chairs were spaced apart from other people. Why do I mention that? Because my parents would bring up my Sweet 16 and say I would not get one if I wanted to get vaccinated, despite all the times I told them it had nothing to do with it. But they said they did not care because it was their money and they did not have to do anything for me by throwing a party since it was a privilege. They also said that getting vaccinated meant not putting our trust in God, and that the virus was just a tool the Democrats used against the 45th president. We argued a lot about how my party had nothing to do with their beliefs, but they kept using it against me until they finally said I would not get one. But they have been angry with me ever since I voiced my opinion, and pulling me out of dance is the latest thing they have done. Every so often, they sit my sister and me down for a quarterly chat to discuss anything family-related. I really hate those talks because it is just them forcing their opinions and things like that on us, plus new rules they sometimes invent. However, in their last chat, they spoke to me without my sister, and told me my current semester of dance and gymnastics would be my last, pointing to what they taught me about purity culture as the reason. Mom said women must be honorable before God and themselves with their bodies by not showing too much skin and things like that. In the past, she has been very controlling with what we wear. For example, no shorts or two-piece swimsuits when we go to the beach or the community pool. But regarding the conversation, Dad said he felt led to address the topic of dance and gymnastics, and that as I approached adulthood, I also needed to start thinking differently. When I asked what he meant, he said he felt challenged in his walk with God while being in the gym environment and that he felt God was telling him to address it. I told him that had nothing to do with me, although he kept talking about purity and how Mom also agreed with him, and she said it was very important for him to address it, but it still has nothing to do with me. They have been treating me like garbage since I told them I wanted to get vaccinated and wear a mask, something they have refused to do and continue to refuse to do. Now I am going to lose dance right after my Sweet 16, but they just will not listen to me. I told Dad that Mom or one of my friends could drive me, and I even told my grandmother, who talked to them about it, but Dad screamed at me for going behind their backs and for being disrespectful by going to his mother. I feel like I lose more privileges the older I get, and I do not know what to do to make them stop. Is there anything I can do to at least get them to let me stay in dance, since I cannot talk to anyone else because they will just scream at me again? Update 1. When I talked to them again, they said they would help me keep some of my friends if I was respectful and that it is a privilege and they do not have to drive me anywhere. But when they brought up that I was wrong for telling my grandmother, Mom said we should build each other up as Christians and not do the opposite by gossiping about people. She said we are supposed to help each other in our walk. But after saying that, they gave me other options. Dad said he wanted me to keep doing sports and try something else, but I could not do dance, gymnastics, swimming, or cheerleading. Mom brought up the Bible verse about not conforming to the world and said the world tries to tell you to show too much skin, but we are supposed to be different for God. Dad said he also looks away from TV commercials that are like that, but I have seen him definitely not look away during plenty of commercials. When I asked Mom what that had to do with me, she said the uniforms I wore in dance were inappropriate, and I should be grateful they ever let me do it. Dad said that is also why he does not watch Olympic gymnastics, even though I told him again that has nothing to do with me. Since our first talk, Dad has not returned to the dance studio, but he still will not let me continue after the classes end. He also does not want me talking to my grandmother, and Mom has stopped letting me go to her house. I have not told my coach yet, but I plan to do it before classes end. And I do not think I will tell my friends because maybe my parents will still let me hang out with them. But if they find out I told someone else, Mom said she would ground me, since they already warned me after I talked to my grandmother. And like someone commented on my first post, a coach might be mandated to report it. I do not want to be punished after they already threatened me. Is there anyone I can tell who will not have to tell them, but who can still help me? My sister also does dance, but they are not forcing her to quit, and I think it is because she is younger. I hate this so much because I am the only one being punished. It is not that she should be punished too, but it just is not fair. I am going to tell my coach, but I do not know whether to tell my doctor, since they might tell my parents because my parents pay the medical bills, and I do not know if doctors are required to tell them. Update 2. Since my last update, I spoke to my coach, and I also had a chance to think more about everything. Before I talk about her, I want to talk about Dad and what I now think about the whole situation. When Dad spoke to me, Mom said he was doing something very important, but he has done absolutely nothing to work on himself. I want to explain what I mean. When Mom took my sister to the gym without him, he stayed home watching television and has not seen a therapist or anyone from the church. That is why he said no one outside our family should know. As part of working on himself, he said he would not watch Olympic gymnastics or swimming this year, and that he would not go to the gym for 2 weeks while he was fasting. But right now, he has already gone back to the gym, and that is why I decided to talk to my coach. When Dad first spoke to me, I did not know what being challenged meant. But after our follow-up conversation about how I could not play sports requiring a uniform similar to gymnastics, it made more sense. I want to explain why. If Dad had felt challenged by one of my teammates or instructors, he would have let me continue with gymnastics and simply moved me to a different gym. But because he did not want me doing dance, swimming, or gymnastics because of the uniforms, I started to think I was the one challenging him. That is what I talked about with my coach too. I did not want to think it was me, and I kept telling myself in my mind that it was not true. But if it had been a friend or a teacher, we would just switch gyms. Since he did not want me to keep doing gymnastics, swimming, or dance at all, it was not an issue with the gym itself, and I did not want to believe it. I could have had Mom drive me permanently if he felt challenged and he could just always stay home. But even seeing me get dressed at home might challenge him, and that scared me for another reason. Since Dad is not watching Olympic gymnastics and swimming, I started feeling uncomfortable that he had sports photos of me from all these years. And now that his 2-week fasting at home is over, he went back to the same gym to watch my sister practice. And that also made me believe this was all about me. I hate writing that, and it makes me feel horrible when I think about it at home. I do not want him to have photos or look at me that way. And I also do not want him at the gym for my sister. My coach said she would speak to the head coach about it. I could barely finish that practice because I could not get it out of my head. I am terrified. Dad looks at my old photos that way. My grandmother also told other extended family members whatever she and Dad talked about. And Dad is angry with me because it is now a topic among the extended family. He has been to one practice since his 2-week fast, and my coach said she would follow up with me at my next class. But she also told me she might have to speak with my parents or the authorities after talking to our head coach. We are going to talk again at our next practice. That is basically it. Dad is upset that the family knows, but he has not mentioned anything to me about phone calls or anything else, and I do not think he will know anything until I see them at the holidays. I do not know what will happen when I talk to my coach again, but she agreed Dad should not be at the gym and said the head coach might talk to my parents before our follow-up, if they have not already spoken to them when Dad went to my sister's practice for the first time since his fast. Dad has been very upset about the family thing, and I would not be surprised if the head coach already spoke to him and he just has not told me yet. But he said we are going to talk again soon. I wanted to write this because I am afraid of losing privileges or maybe my phone. Talking here has been very helpful when I cannot talk to my grandmother or anyone else, and I do not want to lose that. I should delete this, but I do not want to because I have no one else to really talk to. I thought about showing this to them, but that would definitely make things worse. I know I will probably be punished, but I want to ask if there is anything I can do before that happens. Before we talk again about how the extended family now knows, and very likely yes, when the head coach also speaks to them. Is there anything I can do to just make this calm down? I do not even care about gymnastics anymore. I just do not feel comfortable around him, and I am also afraid the same thing will happen to my sister if it has not already. Is there anything I can do or plan to do after we talk and after they maybe punish me? Edit. After reading some comments, here is where I am. At my last practice, my coach told me she would pass everything I said to the head coach, since she is a junior coach and the head coach was not there that night, and that the head coach would probably talk to my parents and contact Child Protective Services, and maybe tell Dad he is no longer allowed at the gym. Since that practice, Dad said we were going to have a talk about how my grandmother told the extended family what I said, since he is terrified it might ruin his job reputation. If I lose my phone, which I think will happen, it will probably be for 2 or 3 weeks, since school starts soon and I will need it back by then. As others suggested, I will call my grandmother tonight to tell her how they are punishing me for telling her. It will have to be after my parents go to sleep, because they have a habit of standing outside my bedroom door whenever I am on the phone. I might also call Child Protective Services while they sleep, regardless of whether my coach already contacted them, which would be another reason Dad wants to talk if he did receive a call. I am also very uncomfortable that Dad has access to old sports photos and how he views them, which is another reason I am considering calling them, because it could get worse, as others also said. Update 3. I really did not plan to come back to this again. But a few weeks have passed, and talking here was helpful when I could not talk to my parents or my coach, except once a week. Things calmed down a bit for a while, and a lot of the advice I got was also helpful. But there are still some other things happening, and I wanted to post again before Dad comes back. As I write this now, and since my last post, Dad is currently not living with us full-time. When I made my first post about 3 months ago, my Sweet 16 was one of the main issues, but after everything that happened with gymnastics, I really stopped caring about it. I was actually glad it did not happen, considering all the extra heavy baggage that came with the party regarding the vaccine issue and their religious views on it. However, as of writing this, I am now 16. There was no party, and it honestly does not bother me. My mind has been on other things, and I told my parents I did not want to celebrate either, since I would lose my gymnastics friends, and, as a punishment, they would not be allowed to come because I told my grandmother. The main reason Dad wanted to talk to me last time was that my grandmother told his side of the family what I told her, and now more people knew. Dad said he received calls from other people about it. When I made my last post, many people encouraged me to call my grandmother and let her know I was being punished for going to her, and some even encouraged me to ask her to help me call Child Protective Services. I waited until my parents went to sleep to call her, but because of what time they went to bed, it was almost midnight when I called, and I could not reach her. I called several times, but I just could not get through. I did not feel comfortable calling Child Protective Services on my own, and I did not want to explain it entirely by myself without talking to anyone. But I managed to call my Aunt Clara on my dad's side and talk to her. I did not want to have to tell her everything from the beginning, but she said she already knew because my grandmother had told her, although she did not know I was being punished for telling her and that I was scared of our talk tomorrow. I also told her how I had to hide that I was talking to her, but when I mentioned protective services and wanting her help to call them, she told me that my grandmother had threatened Dad that she would call them if he went through with pulling me out of gymnastics, but she was not sure if she actually called them or not. I suppose that was probably part of what they were arguing about. But Aunt Clara said she was not sure if my grandmother would actually call on him, despite wanting to or thinking she could bluff him. So Aunt Clara said she would call them for me because I did not want to speak to them and was terrified my parents would hear me and come downstairs to ask who I was talking to. When my parents talked to me the next day, they brought up my grandmother and some things I did not know. Mom said someone from Dad's side of the family texted one of his relatives, who then called him about it. So now someone else on their side knows too. And even though the issue of me telling my grandmother was supposedly handled weeks ago, they were furious that more people besides my grandmother knew, and they said it was stressing them out. When I asked if they were going to punish me for that, Dad said I was not going to finish the rest of my class sessions, but regarding my phone, he did not take it away. When I asked about my friends and when I could see them again, he said that was not important right now and that my sister would not go back to her classes either. But he did not say if any of the coaches had spoken to them or anything, and I just do not know right now. Mom also said his parents were quite upset when they spoke to her, but that due to the stress, Dad was going to take some time off work and stay with his brother to figure some things out, though she gave no details or said for how long. Mom said it would be temporary and he would still come home part of the time. She also said his parents might try to visit her too, though she told them she did not want them coming over. However, as of writing this, Dad has been home a little bit here and there, but he has also spent time at my uncle's house and sometimes sleeps over there, so it has been a little quieter at times. I am not sure when Protective Services called them, but the day after we talked, Mom told me she received a call from them, and Dad assumed I had called or told someone else. I told her no, that I did not know who called, but she did not seem to believe me, though she has not bothered me much about it since then. However, Mom has been on the phone talking about it at home, and when I was able to talk to Aunt Clara again, she said Mom was maybe getting advice or something. But since they called, Mom has been on edge ever since Dad started going to his brother's house. She scolds me for little things, and I feel like she just takes her frustration out on me whenever she can, usually by yelling and sometimes by just giving me the silent treatment. My sister, on the other hand, has not talked to me much either since she was pulled from gymnastics, and I think she blames me for being removed. She gives me short answers and has been avoiding me a bit. And even though everything has been quieter for a while without Dad around all the time, Mom said he is coming back permanently soon, and I am scared things will go back to how they were when he returns. After Mom told me about the call, I told Aunt Clara, and she suggested I call the services on my own, since they had not taken my phone, just in case she missed anything. She also said it would be better to call before a potential home visit in case my parents refused to let them in or tried to tell me not to say anything. I did not want to call without her, but she was right when she suggested Mom might not let them in, because that is exactly what she did. However, nothing has happened, even after I called or after they supposedly visited, or at least nothing that I am aware of. I have talked to Aunt Clara about trying to stay with her as Dad's return gets closer, but since I am already back in school, I am considering talking to a teacher. Since I could not do that a few weeks ago when school was out, I just feel like there are a lot of things they are not telling me, and I do not know if there is anything they can do or actually will do, since Dad has not done anything besides say a lot of weird things. He has never touched me or anything like that. He also lets me play sports, just not the 3 I mentioned. And since he has not physically done anything, I do not know what to do from here. Mom is mad at me, and my sister is also mad at me. Dad is super stressed, and I am having a really hard time focusing in school. Sorry this is so long, but I just want to ask if it is worth calling them again, since I am terrified that, because everything is strictly verbal, they will not do anything unless I am just completely unaware that they are working on it. Update 4. I had not planned to make any more posts, but something recently happened that has been upsetting after having found a little bit of peace. A few months have passed, and I talked to a teacher about what happened, and she said she was a mandated reporter and would have to report it, but nothing really happened. Even though Aunt Clara said maybe services would call like she did. But aside from that, not much else has happened other than talking to my teacher occasionally, while things had calmed down until recently. My younger sister has been allowed to go back to her practices after Dad took a 2-week fasting break from attending, aside from telling me I could no longer do it at my age so he could work on himself. But he did this without seeking therapy whatsoever. He simply stayed home and did not even talk to a church counselor. He said he would not watch Olympic gymnastics as part of the fast, and then in 2 weeks, he was right back at the gym. However, this post is not about that. Some people suggested trying to maintain my skills by practicing at home, and I started doing that after my parents went to sleep downstairs in the garage where we have some open space. I am always downstairs after they go to bed, and I had been doing this for a few weeks. However, Mom suddenly came downstairs and saw me practicing when she went to get laundry from the utility room. I had headphones in and was not bothering anyone. But Mom said I am not allowed to be downstairs after she goes to bed. And when I asked why, she said I was being disobedient, and that when Dad said to stop, he meant quitting gymnastics completely and not doing things behind their backs. I told her I could try to practice in my bedroom, even though it was a bit cramped, but she put her foot down on the new rule and would not hear of it. Even when I go downstairs to get a drink of water, she listens for my footsteps on the stairs and gets up to come down and tell me to go back upstairs quite a few times, and I have not been able to practice in over a week after finding a way to do it for the previous few weeks. We also have a floor beam in the garage. She also told Dad, who yelled at me about it, but I am at the point of being practically done with gymnastics again after the nonsense with the gym. Mom even put a camera in the living room that connects to her phone after we talked, and that is what made me want to write this. Yes, I could try to practice outside or at a local park, but I am just exhausted by all of this, and I want to ask how to deal with the camera. Aunt Clara has spoken to my parents a few times, but they ended up arguing, and they do not want me talking to her. I also told my teacher, who said she would report it, but nothing has happened, and I am just tired and regret trying to practice in the garage because Mom said the camera is not going anywhere and I will be punished if I mess with it. But she never said anything about not practicing at home until that night when she made up that rule. Sorry if I am posting too much, but if I manage to get them to take the camera down, since apologizing did not work, I am just going to keep a low profile. Even though Mom pulled that rule out of thin air, like I was supposed to magically guess it. Update 5. I am 17 now, and a lot of the people who reached out to me helped me tremendously mentally on past posts. My parents recently talked to me about college and explained how Dad's fasting has become a testimony, which makes absolutely zero sense. One of the main reasons I came back to this was because so many people reached out to me on my other posts, and I cannot stress enough how helpful it has been. I talked to my aunt and my teacher at school, as I mentioned in my previous post. Aunt Clara said she called Child Protective Services, and my teacher said she was also required to report it. But like I said in my last post, nothing came of it. Many people said I should also call myself, but others said it would not do any good because Dad had not done anything to warrant them getting involved. I also did not want to call from my house because they might hear me, so I called with the same teacher I talked to at school. But that was months ago, and nothing has happened since. I told them about the fast and the main points of my posts, but nothing came of it. However, some of the people who commented or messaged me on my posts really helped me with the stress, and I cannot stress that enough. I was overwhelmed when I made my first post, but hearing others say I was not crazy really helped because there were so many emotions happening at the same time. Someone even messaged me to ask if they could summarize my post on a subreddit that archives posts in case my parents found my account or took my phone. And rereading some comments has honestly helped me on days when I have felt terrible. Regarding Mom's cameras, she still has them up, and I have not practiced gymnastics in months. Honestly, I am done with it and I do not know if I will go back. I also wanted to get a summer job last year, but they said I did not deserve one because of how I was behaving. And by that, I mean asking Dad to keep explaining why I could not do gymnastics, plus trying to practice skills at home, only for him to make up some nonsense about how I was not allowed to do that either after Mom caught me practicing in the garage and snitched on me. I hope I can work this summer. And it has been a few months since then. I do not want to get my hopes up too high, but I hope I can. The reason I am posting today is because of a conversation we had about college, and they wanted to speak with me. They said they would not consider letting me go unless I showed respect, and they also brought up the gymnastics topic again when they said they did not want me doing it in college. I talked a little bit about college in my previous posts, but they constantly flip-flop between, "You are not going, and we will think about it," depending on their mood or my behavior, trying to hold it over my head. Dad said he wanted to explain his fast again because it had something to do with college gymnastics. For now, my sister is still in gymnastics, and he pointed to the scripture about how we are supposed to be in the world but not of the world. John 5:11-15. This was to explain why he went back to the gym after fasting. He said God put us in a world with temptations because that allowed God to show his power through us and give us testimonies. And he said his struggle was also a testimony. But it makes no sense because he punished me for venting to my aunt a long time ago and did not want anyone else to know about it. What kind of testimony is one you never tell people about? That is why he fasted and went back to the gym that was making him stumble. And he said taking a 2-week break as a fast gave him new strategies for when he returned. But he would not say what they were when I asked. When I asked why he had to go back at all, he said it was because my sister was younger and that she would also find a new sport when she got older and her body started changing. Mom said the uniforms became more inappropriate for girls as they grew up, but that they were also inappropriate when they were younger, and that they were currently making Dad stumble. It makes zero sense. I want to go to college, and I am considering playing along so I can go. And they have been changing their minds back and forth about letting me go. But a part of me thinks it might be better to just focus on moving out, as some suggested, skipping college and leaving as soon as possible. If I go to a university using their money, they will be super controlling about it. Heck, they are already trying to control me, so I will not do gymnastics in college. But I only brought that up because it is highly unlikely, since I will be rusty after over 2 years without practicing until I turn 18. So it is not realistic that I will be in any condition to make a college team. But that is where I am, just trying to focus on moving out, although I do get depressed about having to abandon gymnastics without having done anything wrong, and I want to talk to someone about it someday, like a professional outside of school. It might be a while until I turn 18, and even longer if I do not get a job before then. But talking to so many people who reached out to me here has really helped me mentally, and I wanted to say thank you for that. I am also open to any suggestions about my plans or anything else I have said from an outside perspective. Update 6. With almost every post, many people reach out to me, and some who worked at universities messaged me with helpful advice on my last post. I am sorry I could not reply to everyone, but I tried to reply especially to those who worked at colleges, some counselors, and also parents who gave me advice. I want this post to be about my sister, since my last few posts have been about me. But first I want to answer a few questions that pop up most frequently in my messages. People keep telling me I have not called Child Protective Services enough, so I want to clarify how many times I have called. I was 15 when I made my first post and was advised to tell a teacher about Dad. I have spoken a lot with this teacher since then, and she called when I was 15. Aunt Clara also called when I was about 15, and I was advised to call myself. I called at 15 and 16 several times, and my aunt did too. I think we probably called about 7 or 8 times between my aunt, my teacher, and me. And nothing has happened because Dad never touched me, and people have explained that technically he has not done anything illegal either. I also reported everything I mentioned in my posts, and I think it will help establish a paper trail in case he escalates the situation, as others have advised me. But to answer another question, I will turn 18 this summer. I hope to get my first job then, but my parents have refused to give me the paperwork I need to work, saying there is no need every time I ask for it. However, they said they would give them to me at 18, but I do not believe them. I have been told I can get my own documents, maybe before 18, but they are incredibly strict about when I leave the house and they have tracking on my phone along with other parental controls. I have been punished before for trying to bypass them, no hitting, but loss of privileges and having my phone taken away, so I try to be careful. They said my parental controls would vanish at 18, but again, I do not believe them, and I plan to get my own phone when I get a job. I doubt I will have enough to move out with my first part-time job or two, and I already asked Aunt Clara if I could stay with her beforehand. She could not do it before I turned 18. And some people said it is because I am a minor and have no grounds for emancipation because Dad has not done anything illegal. If it was going to help, it would have been when I was 15. Since I am turning 18 soon, I understand I am no longer a priority age. I can only talk to my aunt outside my house, which is very limiting. My parents have a habit of trying to eavesdrop if they hear me on the phone at home, and that is not counting the other rooms that also have recording cameras. I talk to my sister because I feel like I am running out of time to build a connection with her. Ever since I was pulled from gymnastics and punished, she has been distant, and my parents are very protective of her. I only talk to her when they are not around or are busy, because there are cameras in other rooms, but she still does not tell me much. Dad originally told her she would be pulled from gymnastics too, but recently changed his stance. He said she would be allowed to continue gymnastics, thanks to his new strategies that allow him to be in the gym. But when I asked why I could not go back, he said it was better for me to move on. But when I asked if he would feel challenged if he had a son doing gymnastics, he pointed out that I am also not allowed to watch men's gymnastics during the Olympics because only hot 12-year-old girls watch it and that it was not good to look at. But when I asked why he specifically had to go, he said it was like Jesus, when he went into the desert to be tempted by Satan and test his faith. Matthew 4:1. And he said the gym was his desert to overcome. He emphasized that Jesus went to the desert to prove something. He also said Jesus did not run away from the desert, but stayed there to set an example for Christians on how to overcome temptation, and that was the reason he had to go to the gym. He also referenced the scripture about being in the world but not of the world when explaining why it was wrong to run from his challenge, because God uses people's weaknesses to glorify himself. But when I asked why I could not go back if he had overcome his temptation, he said it was because I needed to move on, which contradicts everything he said. He also said he did not want to hear me complaining again about being pulled out over my sister. They do not want me talking to her and get upset if they see me alone with her, whether eating downstairs or anything else. The most recent time I talked to her was last week, and it was because Dad was not home and Mom was busy doing something else. Dad has church meetings and Bible study on weeknights. I asked her how she felt about Dad letting her continue in gymnastics, and she said she was happy to continue. But when I asked if she wanted to open up about what he told her, she did not want to. So I did not push it. I asked if I could tell her what he had told me, and she said it was fine. So I told her about the desert comparison. When I asked if he had given her that comparison, she said no. But when I asked if everything else was okay, she just said Dad sometimes asked her some weird questions. But when I asked what they were, she would not tell me. I asked if he had ever done anything that made her feel uncomfortable, but she said no and gave no details. I do not know what weird things she was referring to, and I do not know if she will tell me. I want to be able to help her, but she did not give me much regarding details. Honestly, I have been worried sick about what weird things he might be asking or telling her, but I do not know the right time or way to bring it up. My fear is that he might try to take advantage of her because she is younger, but I have no proof of that. That is my main fear, even though he has never touched me before. I will not be able to move out the day I turn 18, nor probably shortly after, because I have not heard back from the jobs I applied for, and I have tried applying to a ton. I have no work experience because they would not let me work, and I am still trying to get the paperwork my parents refused to hand over. I will take any job I can get, And if it means 2 part-time jobs to get closer to 40 hours, I will do it. I want to help her while I am still here, because it will probably be harder once I move out. However, I am worried about pushing her too hard when she barely speaks to me as it is. I want to ask for advice on how to help her, if there is any way I can. She has many more years ahead to deal with him, but I cannot help feeling worried about those weird things he is asking her. I do not know if she will tell me or if I should insist, so I want to ask for advice. Update 7. I know I said before that a previous update would be the last, but this will be the last one until I hopefully manage to move out. And I think I have already received more than enough help to be able to do that. I turn 18 this summer, and a lot of people gave me advice on how to get my documents, social security number, and birth certificate through the school, and I was able to talk to my teacher about the advice I got. She agreed to help me get my documents. I want this post to be about something else, my sister told me. Since last time, she said in my post that Dad was telling her weird things but would not say what they were. As I said last time, Mom and Dad do not want us talking to each other and will say something if they see us. Mom also put up cameras that are super annoying, and I talked about that in previous posts. I cannot talk to her much unless one of them has a church meeting or some other thing they are doing together. I cannot even make phone calls at home, because if they hear me talking, they will come into my bedroom, ask who it is, demand to see my phone, and threaten to shut off my service if I do. However, I managed to talk to her again, and she told me something else that seriously disturbed me. She said it was not the weird thing about Dad from last time, but it was still enough for me to make a post. I was able to talk to her because Mom and Dad went out for a bit, and, for context, the cameras are in the living room, the family room, upstairs, and the kitchen. The upstairs one points toward our bedroom doors, but not inside. And the cameras are hooked up to an app on Mom and Dad's phones. She asked if we could talk, and I went into her room after they left. They talked to me about it the next day because they saw on the camera that I went into her room, but I did not care because she wanted to talk to me. I will get to that conversation with my parents later. Back to my sister. She told me that Mom and Dad talked to her about throwing her a gymnastics birthday party in a few months, and her birthday is after I turn 18, and hopefully I will be out of the house by then. They said they are debating having a party at the gym, but they might also do it at our house because we have a pool, and it would be in the backyard. They also said they could have the party at the gym, where they would mess around for a few hours before coming back to the house for the pool and food, but they were tossing around different ideas. However, my sister does not want a gymnastics party, but when she said that, they told her they were paying for it, and she should be grateful to get anything. As a reminder, Mom and Dad said I will not get a party when I turn 18, and they did not throw me a sweet 16 because I wanted to get vaccinated in my first post over 2 years ago, claiming getting vaccinated meant not trusting God. Back to my sister. I am incredibly disturbed for obvious reasons. Now they want to throw my sister a gymnastics party that she does not even want. She said she did not want to do anything for her birthday except eat cake at home, but they are forcing her to have a gymnastics party when Dad openly admits he struggles in the gym environment. My gymnastics coach and I were training for a college gymnastics scholarship with private and group lessons before I was pulled from gymnastics for his nonsense. And I am horrified that he is pushing for a gymnastics party after everything he has done. There will be other kids at that party who will be forced to be around him, and they have no idea about his temptation. And their parents have absolutely no clue either. It is worse that he is organizing the party with Mom's support, and I will not be here when it happens, because hopefully I will have already moved out. I cannot explain how much I despise Dad. I feel like his whole fasting nonsense was an excuse to return to the gym changed, after showing zero real effort to get better. I even talked to Mom since my last post about why she does not see what is wrong with Dad, and she said a lot of fathers probably deal with the same feelings at the gym but do not admit it like Dad did in order to improve. She also said gymnastics is easy for people to watch with lust because it is a sport, but that Dad did something very important instead of hiding his sin like other people. She also said other men who come to watch their kids in gymnastics struggle with the same thing, but they just do not admit it. And she said that is why Dad did something very important by admitting it and working on himself. She also said most men would not be interested in gymnastics compared to other sports, unless they had kids in it, or wanted to see girls dressed inappropriately in their uniforms, in a socially acceptable setting. But when I told her it was hypocritical of her to let Dad go if she thinks the uniforms are inappropriate, she gave me the same nonsense about being in the world but not of the world, and she pointed out how Dad fasted to allow my sister to continue. You guys know what my father says. I have always been told to use the gray rock method, and I completely agree. The only reason I talked to Mom after she confronted me about going into my sister's room when they were gone was to ask for her help. I know talking to her is like talking to a brick wall, and I used the gray rock method with Dad. I just want her help so badly, but I am convinced after our last conversation that she will never give it, although I already knew that long before, but I wanted to try. My sister also said she is not allowed to wear her uniform at home because Mom made up that rule, which means she has to wear sweatpants and a jacket over her leotard. I tried to tell Mom how messed up that was when we talked, but she hit me with the same in the world speech and said we make adjustments to help everyone. Dad also only takes her to gymnastics sometimes, and that really disgusts me. I asked my sister if it was okay for me to ask Mom about the gymnastics party, but she said no because she did not want to get in trouble for telling me. So I did not mention it and told Mom we talked about the jacket rule instead. I promise this is my last post before I move out, but I really need help with this. I think it is dangerous for all the party guests to be around Dad at the gym and at home. Dad literally said he struggles with gymnastics uniforms, and Mom always made us wear a skirt and a t-shirt over our swimsuits years before Dad pulled me out of gymnastics. The kids at the party would probably be wearing some kind of uniform at the gym and swimsuits at our house for the pool. And that leaves me terrified of Dad. I want to do something because I will not be able to do anything once I leave, and I am worried something might happen to someone there who suspects nothing. My sister does not want this party. My parents are forcing her to have it because they want to throw it. I have some ideas, but I hope to get more. Some people have suggested calling the FBI. I would have enough for them to help based on the information my sister told me about the party, along with how open Dad has been about his temptation. Others also suggested telling the gym about Dad, but my parents would be at her class, which would make it very difficult. I could try going to the gym and doing it anyway, and that serves to protect them. But I want to ask for other suggestions first, because that might jeopardize my chances of leaving if they get angry. I am willing to do it to prevent something from happening, but I want to explore all options first. I have called services more than 6 times myself over the years, and that is not counting my teacher's calls and my aunt's numerous calls without anything happening. The police might help with this. I just want to stop something bad from happening there, and I am sorry this post is so long. I really appreciate everyone who has helped me so far, and I promise this will be the last one until I move out. I am going to write the suggestions and ideas I have so far down below in a way that is easier to read. I would appreciate anyone who helps answer these questions. Calling the FBI. I think some people left links on how to do it, but I do not know if I have enough information for them to take it seriously. Calling the gym and telling them about Dad. Others have said this might get Dad banned. But what if Dad decides to have the party at another gym? Plus, the gym probably would not tell the other parents that Dad was banned, so Dad could still invite the kids to another gym for his party. Which leads to my third question. Telling the parents in her class during their class. My parents would be at practice with the other parents, but someone suggested pulling a parent aside in the restroom or somewhere to talk, even if my parents are there, because it would make them look bad if they tried to stop me. I would have to sneak out of the house to go to the gym despite the cameras, but this might be my only way to guarantee the parents know about Dad's temptation. If the gym does not tell them and just decides to ban Dad from the facility, this would be the only way to guarantee they know. Waiting to call the gym or telling the parents until after I move out. Someone suggested this option when I posted last week, so I do not jeopardize my move, so I will include it here. Update 8. I know how many times I have said it would be my last post, but this truly will be the last one due to the gravity of the situation. I also technically said I would come back once I moved out of my parents' house, which happened shortly before my sister's birthday. I was able to move out over a year ago when I turned 18. The good news was being able to move into Aunt Clara's house, since I did not need to be emancipated from my parents. In fact, it was a surprise from my aunt on the morning of my birthday because she was there to take me with her. The only reason I had not done it sooner was because I knew my parents would never accept that. She also did not mention it to them or to me ahead of time, for fear that they might decide to do something to me while I still lived in their house. She was the one who helped me call services and even tried on many occasions, without telling me, to report my dad's behavior to the police. They told her the same thing they told everyone else, that it was not illegal without him having touched me. My parents were furious with my aunt that day, but there was not much they could do, other than let me go. There was also nothing illegal stopping me from moving out the very first day I turned 18. But my sister was still inside the house, and with my aunt and other relatives, we started working on a plan to help her. Actually, I joined their plan to help her, which they had already been working on. Once out of the house, We tried to go over everything that happened, all the conversations, and anything I might have missed. But my dad never did anything inappropriate with me, and I was sure he was not doing it with my sister either. Still, we wanted to prevent the party at the gym or at home. We did not know how many parents would leave their child unattended, and we did not know if my dad, since it was not one of his daughters, would be tempted. In the end, we decided that other relatives and I would attend the party and try to talk to other parents about what was going on. We were not thinking about the consequences, we just wanted to warn them, but everything escalated very quickly, and the party ended shortly after it started, when the parents began talking among themselves and called the police. I am going to summarize this part heavily because it is very long, and I also do not want to give details in case someone can find the case on the internet. The only thing the police did once they arrived at the scene was talk to everyone, since there was no proof. They also talked to me and my sister, but aside from telling us he had not done anything illegal, not much else happened. The party ended, and I cannot describe how enraged my parents were, but not having said anything would have been just as bad as having done it. Even now that we know the truth, it seems to have been the best route. I should also mention punches were thrown at my father and mother, and without the police, I do not know what could have happened. 3 weeks later, my dad was arrested by the police. One of the little girls spoke up and said my dad had made a request of her once at the gym, and then made her promise not to say anything. I will not give the details for privacy reasons, and because I do not want sick people like my father getting ideas. I will only say she was not assaulted, but it was enough for them to arrest him and open an investigation against my dad. My sister was also removed from my mom and taken to a foster home because they had to investigate the rest of the family's involvement in what was happening. Now my sister is under my aunt's care, but she spent almost a month with an unknown family. Both she and I were extensively interviewed by different professionals. My parents were investigated, and much more information came to light than I want to give. During that investigation, the cameras in the house were also analyzed. That is what allowed them to rule out, along with my sister's testimony and mine, that she had suffered from anything she did not want to talk about. The outcome of his trial was the reading of his sentence just a few hours ago, as I could not bear to wait another second to write this. I will not say too much, but both my dad and mom will have to be in a special facility for fear that other inmates might do something to them. My dad's brother as well. So it is a relatively final ending if you do not think about all the awful things they had to do to end up convicted. I will just say it will not be a short sentence. Now I think I am certain I will not return. Edit 1. I really do not want to give any more details than that. It has been very difficult for me to summarize and explain everything. I know there are people who want to read more, but I cannot say the specific things that happened or each person's level of responsibility. You know my dad is the most responsible, but his brother and my mom also had a hand in it to varying degrees. I just want to avoid the harassment I already receive on Reddit. My sister is still a minor, and I prefer to avoid all the disgusting comments I get from sick people on this site, with the difference being that if someone finds out who we are, they could bring all of that into our real life. I also am not ruling out deleting my account if this is something that does not stop. Edit 2. From what I have been told, my parents do not want to live and are having a very hard time, psychologically speaking, in prison. The bad thing is they are not having a hard time because of other inmates. Here is your editor. The account of the original poster was deleted.